And I think it's kind of symbolic that cyber was last today, because I think that when you listen to what's going on with ballast water and you listen to what's going on with emissions, people say, what regulation is there on cyber? Remind me. Wait a minute, cyber? I don't know what that is. Can I smell it? Can I see it? No. Have we been attacked? Well, we're not sunk from it, so perhaps it's not as big a risk. I want to leave some points with you today, and I'm going to also, of course, leave the presentation with SAFETY4SEA so that you're able to get other points out of it if you'd like to take back to your offices, because you, in fact, may not be the individuals in your offices that are responsible. But I still would like to leave you with what should we be thinking about and what should we be doing. This is a little bit about our company. Some of you we work for, actually. We are doing your risk management services, whether for your security and ISPS or for your Open 90 or other areas. So we feel we're at home in Hamburg. We like it here very much. I wish I could actually come a little bit more, but I don't know. Travel is getting to be difficult. A few years ago, we started to talk about cyber and where cyber might take us. And we decided that cyber was a risk that was coming quickly to the maritime transportation world, not only in shipping, and in this case, of course, shipping has to interact with other areas of the marine transportation business because shipping's activities indeed affect a port or a terminal or a government interest. So all of these interests at some point converge, they overlap, and there's going to need to be strategies and communications to allow that to happen. We are here, and if I can leave you, there are about 3 slides in here that if you only remember these slides, I will have done my job. This is slide number 1. What is cybersecurity and what is it not? Cybersecurity is not IT. Some people say, oh, you want to talk about cyber? I have a great IT guy. Sometimes, unfortunately, he's in the basement, or he's in a little cubicle with the door closed, and we feed him under the door, and we bring him out when we need to talk about cyber. And that is not the answer to addressing cyber. Cyber is company-wide, enterprise-wide, and it is systemic. Now, recently, we're more aware of cyber. You've probably attended some awareness training. You know a little bit more about it. But all of us tend to focus on our primary areas of interest. Those of you that are engineers, for you, cyber is a problem that affixes to the engineering group. What do I, as an engineer, need to do to protect the engineering and technology aboard the vessel? Those of you that are in chartering are saying, what does the charterer think about me? Do I need a cybersecurity plan because the charterers are going to ask for it? Each of us start to think about the problem in terms of our own background and expertise. Cyber is one of those areas that cuts across every single area within your enterprise. And why? What's important? Well, I'm going to posit to you that getting to understand why it's important and what needs to be done to address it is going to involve a cultural change within your business. Why? Because this is something that we're not used to thinking about. Now, who is the biggest threat to your organization? Some people say, oh, it's going to be a terrorist that's going to come and get me. Well, you know, listening to these security presentations, you understand that that's not outside the realm of reason. But I would like to tell you that it isn't that. It's Dave or any other person that thinks that he can do or get away with, for example, using his USB stick, his thumb drive at the wrong place at the wrong time, or forgetting to follow a procedure. But Dave, that guy, human error, and we've been talking about that all day, that's something that's not going away. And the less information and the less education people have about the problem, there are more people able to commit the human error. I might say, though, so what? All right, he makes a problem. He put something in. All right, we were hacked. Oh, our system's closed down for a day. So what? Let's come back to that in a few minutes. I'm going to tell you that the place to start in cybersecurity is the way that you start in other areas of risk for our industry. That is, do an assessment. This is kind of a sideways heat map. Ours doesn't look that way, but it's not too dissimilar from the software we've got. But what we're trying to tell you is, if you haven't assessed and you haven't measured, then how do you know where you're going? Do you have a clue what your goal or objective is? And do you have any idea what the roadmap is? And do you know whether you have moved from level 1 to level 2? In what area have you done that? Perhaps you're already just, say, a level 3 in certain areas, but in other areas you're a dismal level 1 and afraid to admit it. How do you know unless you've assessed your enterprise? Not assessed your vessel, assessed your enterprise, including the necessary vessel assessments, equipment assessments, technology assessments that go along with that. So we're saying this: assess, train the people in your organization within the areas they need to be aware of. Make a plan. Do you have a cyber plan? Do you have a customized cyber plan, one that relates to your activities? Or do you have one that you bought that someone else has one similar to it? You've got 4 offices, worldwide operations. He has one office with 6 employees. Is that the plan that you want? Then you go about implementation. Implementation itself is a plan because it requires that you've already assessed, you've made a plan, and in that plan there are priorities for getting from A to B and B to C. And then you test yourself. Testing can take place in a drill and exercise forum. It can take place with, the famous white hat hacking or the pen test. It can take place in other ways, but test yourself. But it has to be measurable, not just, oh, we did pretty well today. I don't think anybody suffered. No, nobody had a problem. It has to be measurable against exactly the parameters that mean something. And then, just like we're doing in every other continuous improvement program, we have to repeat that. So cyber is here to stay. It started now. And we have to make all of the same moves because it will be a part of our ISM. It is a part now, according to recommendations. IMO has said so. But we think, well, we've got until January 1st, 2021. A little bit like some of the other presentations we heard today. If you're starting now, you will be probably ready. If you're starting next December, not sure. There's a dearth of expertise in the cyber arena. People are jumping into it because they think, oh, well, this is going to be the next big thing to make money. So there's little expertise. The expertise is expensive. And if you need to do something in a hurry and you need some advice and assistance, in a year, it's going to be difficult to find. Not impossible, but just expensive and difficult. So cybersecurity awareness looks quite similar to some of the things we have faced in ISPS. It's just that it's an area that we can't see, touch, or feel. So we've got to get started on this, and if you're starting by buying equipment and buying bits of kit, and you're saying, well, we're developing protection and detection measures, congratulations, but why? Do you know why? Do you know that you've identified your vulnerabilities? Or are you going to not bother with that and budget money to buy bits of kit to help you that actually don't really align with a plan you've made? I'm saying rethink it a little. This is another version of making you, I hope, aware of what can be done in order to do it properly. If you kick off the project, you do a threat analysis. This isn't something you can do internally. You need experts to do it because you've got to see where your company right now is on the dark web, as well as what is threatened. So bits of it you can do internally, but external advice is needed. You need to then say, all right, what is going to happen if we have a major, major loss, a major impact? What is at risk? Then we start to do an insurance analysis stress test. In other words, can we afford a major failure? We've been working closely with the North of England, a little bit with the DNV, where we're on their Veracity platform now, and we're trying to get an understanding from an industry perspective of what does a stress test look like for this that isn't overblown, is not expensive, and is not taking you down the primrose path where you're spending too much money too quickly without understanding what you achieve. Then you're going forward to report preparation, and this is how you start. This is not the plan. I wanted to explain to you the word maturity, and we used cyber capability as an alternate way of approaching it. In other words, how mature is your process? How do you know? How do you measure? What does it look like? And how can you repeat that same assessment later? These are things we're encouraging you to think through before you start off with a plan or start off with buying things. You're going to need to maybe buy things later. Maybe you should figure out that you'd like to buy something in 3 or 4 months. But please start with this. And you think it's expensive. This bit, it's really not. Here's a better heat map with a better indication of where a company, a real company, was quite good, needs improvement, and was not at all good. I can say that some of the trends are not as bad. Tanker management, for example, they understand how to manage risk. They've been forced into it in a different way than the non-tank vessels have. But what we can tell you is that your scoring can be affected relatively quickly if you get into this with proper guidance. And again, I think it can be done not expensively. Yeah. And this is where it's leading. And I told you earlier, what do you think is of value? What's at risk? Well, really, it isn't the vessel, although the vessel is a key part to your company making money. It's the company's balance sheet, the company's assets, the company's ability to live another day when it gets hit. Because it will get hit. Probably it's already hit, but maybe you have not had an impact or you're not aware yet. But what happens if you have a significant hit? If you're Maersk, you will survive likely. If you're Exxon Mobil and you have the Valdez, you can self-fund the response. How resilient is your company? How resilient does it need to be? And how do you cover the gap from what the company can afford to do to what you may have to do in order to survive? Well, I'm sorry. I'm so happy that I kept moving. I just wanted to make sure that you understood there were 3 elements to this. One element is hardening yourself as a target, trying to make sure the bad guys can't get in. But assume that they will. Now you have to say, how do we continue our business when our systems have been attacked? And then, how do we keep our organization as the tennis ball? Somebody used that today. I thought it was fantastic. Not the egg, the tennis ball. How do you bounce back? And how do you do it quickly with no loss of trust for your key stakeholders, your vendors, etc.? It looks a little like this, and the capability maturity model, a cyber maturity model, is very difficult to understand unless you have some cyber background. But on the other hand, it's quite easily aligned with the things we've seen in other areas. I'm going to go forward just a bit because I think you understand this is leading to best practices. You know what this is about. There's lots of information available, and we hope we can make some of that available. But I feel that this is a little bit how we think right now. We're having a perfectly good day. We have somebody we're working with, and we're talking about something on our screen, and all of a sudden everything stops. And because we're only moderately prepared, it is as if our whole world collapses. They're shooting at me through the computer. If you feel like that, this is an emotional slide. This is not a factual slide. If you feel like that, you need to get some help fairly soon. So, I'm saying, what do you do? Well, the answer is clear. The problem is, on these 3 bullets, I'm betting that very few people in the room could activate those plans right now. Am I right? Anybody have all 3 in place? You don't have to say, but I would like it if anybody said yes. You know, you're not alone. We have other priorities, and many of us are trying to survive. But if we're going to do this right, and we're going to do it for the right reasons, I'm just encouraging you to get started now. And it's very difficult to take that in when you're worried about ballast water. Where are we going with it in the future? There will be response regulations coming out. The Coast Guard is contemplating them very, very heavily right now in meetings with their people in the United States. They're saying, this looks to us like something that we need to make sure people are ready to do. So we're going to be thinking about response regulations. But I say that your vendors, your stakeholders, the ports that you call on, they're all going to be interested in what you do. So will your charterers. But what about your bankers and your investors? So eventually you'll get to the point where you're able to look at insurance. We won't talk about that today. I'm going to just say one more thing here, and then we'll skip to the end. It's going to look like a multidisciplinary arrangement that will be in place for your company in order to respond to an event. Years ago, we resisted this during Open 90, and then we got used to it. We're going to get used to this too. It's just going to take some time. But this is where we're heading, and you're going to need to be thinking about these things as you tackle this problem. Everybody else has the same problem, and we think that you are going to be seeing it coming forward fairly quickly. It's going to be 1 year is almost like nothing. So we're getting to here, and we're managing our risk. That's what we want. Thank you very much.